were no changes.
All right.
Except it consolidated all the...
Okay, good morning once again. Thank you for joining a special weather briefing on Hurricane Sally and the impacts to north and central Georgia that are anticipated. Wanted to just go ahead and show you the latest radar. You could see, most of you have probably been paying attention, Sally has officially made landfall just past Gulf Shores and into the panhandle of Florida at this time. You can see where the center is kind of circulating right along the Alabama-Florida state line, but the outer rain bands extend far out to the north and east, excuse me, of the center of the storm. Latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center, which I'll talk about here in just a second with the forecast track, is that Sally remains a hurricane, max winds 80 miles per hour, and it will continue to move slowly to the northeast over the next few hours this afternoon. So that's the latest on the radar with Sally. Here's the National Hurricane Center's latest forecast that was issued just about an hour ago. I mentioned Sally remains a hurricane with max winds 80 miles per hour. Moving to the northeast at 5 miles per hour. This is gradually going to turn more to the northeast, as you can see, pick up a little bit of speed later today into tonight. I think the most important thing we want to take from this is that try not to focus on the center of the storm and the exact track, because the threats and the impacts are going to be felt far beyond where the center is, as I'll show you here in just a second, and even outside the cone. So just because you're not in that forecast cone over the next couple of days doesn't mean you won't have some significant impacts from this tropical system. Okay, so what does that mean for us as far as threats and impacts? Well, we've been talking, no real major changes from yesterday. We're still looking at heavy rain, flooding, and flash flooding being the primary threat. We do expect, as the rain to move in later today, overspread the area from southwest to northeast, but the real heavy rain moves in later this evening through the overnight hours and into tomorrow. Obviously, the concern is that this prolonged period of heavy rain will quickly lead to flooding and potential areas of flash flooding. And we'll get into that here in just a second. And in addition to the heavy rain and the flooding, we are going to have to watch for some pretty gusty winds at times, especially developing overnight into tomorrow. 25 to 35 miles per hour is just sort of a general range of what we're anticipating at this point. And that prolonged period of seeing these gusty winds could bring down some trees and power lines as we go through the night tonight into the day tomorrow. In addition to that, there's still a very low-end tornado threat, mainly across our far southern counties, so parts of middle Georgia and extending into South Georgia with the outer rain bands as the system approaches later tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow. All right, so just to sort of break down where our threat levels exist at this point, the heavy rainfall and the flash flooding is our biggest concern, but we bumped up the river flooding because we do anticipate with some of the rainfall amounts that we're anticipating, the 3 to 6 inches widespread across the area with locally higher amounts, eventually will bring the larger streams and rivers up into some flooding over the next few days. So river flooding, we elevated, kind of spiked that up a little bit. Mentioned that the gusty wind potential is going to cause some problems as well. And then the low-end tornado threat exists south of, mainly south of I-20. Mentioned more of the southern counties, basically from like Columbus to Macon and points south. We're going to have to watch those areas later tonight into the early morning hours tomorrow. So here is the just a simulated radar from one of our high resolution models, basically starting from about noon today and running all the way through about midday tomorrow. You could see the heavier rain really starting to push in late tonight into the morning hours. And some of those outer rain bands that you see that are sort of extending from the Gulf of Mexico into the system itself, those bands is where we'll have to watch for the potential for some weak tornadoes or brief spin-up tornadoes that develop later tonight into the morning hours tomorrow. So again, the main threat is going to be this prolonged period of heavy tropical rain that's really going to pile up some amounts pretty quickly, given the obvious tropical nature of this system. And on top of that, the gusty winds that develop through the afternoon into tonight and into the early morning hours tomorrow can certainly pose a problem with respect to the saturated grounds and bringing down some trees and power lines. So that's sort of the latest look at how things are going to evolve over the next 12 to 24 hours. So rain picks up later this afternoon. Things really get going tonight into tomorrow, and then everything sort of pushes to the northeast out of the area by tomorrow afternoon. So once it hits, it's going to hit hard, last for about 6 to 12 hours, and then the worst hopefully will push to the east, northeast, and basically conditions should improve from southwest to northeast across the area during the day tomorrow. All right, so here's our latest rainfall graphic. Again, we've talked about the heavy rain axis shifting, from what we were talking about a couple of days ago. And sure enough, this is where we're thinking the heaviest rain being pretty much across much of the area, with the exception of far northwest Georgia and parts of our far southeast counties being spared from the heaviest precipitation. But even they can see some pretty significant rainfall at times. Most of the area, especially along I-85 and points south, could see anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, with isolated higher amounts up to even 8 inches before things are all said and done. And this is basically looking at about a 24 to 36 hour window of where all this rain is going to pile up. So you can imagine, because all this rain occurring in a relative short period of time, this is why we're very concerned about the flooding potential and the flash flood issues as well. The Weather Prediction Center highlights these excessive rainfall outlooks, which basically translates to where do we expect the greatest risk to see flash flooding occur. And as you can imagine, where the heaviest rainfall is expected, that in that shaded red area is where we expect, the greatest potential to see flash flooding occur. So anybody even outside that red area in the orange, brown, and even the light green could still see some flash flood issues as we persist or progress through the night tonight into tomorrow. So please, I mentioned, don't let your guard down if you're not in that red shaded area, because even outside of that area, we could still see some flash flood issues later tonight into the day tomorrow. All right, and no real major changes to the flash flood watch. All these counties that you see shaded in green are under a flash flood watch right now, basically until Friday morning. Even though we expect the heaviest precipitation to end, tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow night, we still could see some residual flash flood issues linger even after the heaviest rainfall ends during the day tomorrow. So we're really looking at, given the amount of rain that we could see in a relative short period of time, we're definitely concerned about this life-threatening flash flood situation that could develop across the area, especially in more urban areas, Atlanta, parts of Columbus, north of Macon, Gainesville, Athens. We're all concerned about these urban areas where the water could collect pretty quickly. And not to mention, as we get up into some of the higher elevations of North Georgia, where the heavy rain in a short period of time can cause some problems there as well. So wanted to mention also the wind threat. This is a snapshot of where kind of our maximum wind gust grids are looking right now. But I want you to know that it's going to be more of a prolonged period of these gusty winds occurring later on tonight and through the morning hours tomorrow. So a good chunk of like west central and southwest part of our area could see anywhere from 30 to 40 mile per hour winds at time. And it's not accounting for where some of the heavier rain bands develop. We could even see stronger wind gusts than this. So again, seeing the prolonged period of this type of wind, even gusts, could definitely create some problems with bringing down trees and power lines, power outages, things like that. So please keep that in mind. In addition to the heavy rain flood potential, we're definitely going to be looking at a wind concern as we head into the night tonight and through the first part of tomorrow, as the system starts to move across the area. Okay, I don't want to forget about rivers and streams. So we've talked about the flash flood potential, but this doesn't account for the creeks and the streams and the larger rivers sort of coming up over the next few days. A lot of this is going to be dependent on how much rain we actually see and where the heaviest rain sets up. But we feel pretty confident, and these snapshots are taken from the River Forecast Center, inputting data like rainfall data into their models to come up with a forecast. These are all basically river forecast points across the state. So any of those points that you see in orange or red could potentially see a chance of seeing even like moderate flooding, minor to moderate flooding. The orange is minor flood. The red would be moderate flooding. And that's, again, this is just a forecast based off of what we're predicting, inputting into the models right now. So this can certainly change through the day today, into tonight, into early tomorrow. And by early tomorrow, we're probably going to be already issuing some warnings here and there from based on some of these rivers and streams and what they're forecast to go into flood over the next couple of days. So one thing to keep in mind with these larger streams and rivers is that well after the heavy rain ends, as we head into Friday and even Saturday and Sunday this weekend, we could still be dealing with some significant flooding in across parts of the area. So especially with some of the rainfall amounts that we're predicting right now, that 3 to 6 inches with locally higher amounts is definitely going to create some problems in the streams and rivers. This does not take into account those smaller creeks, especially around Atlanta. We have a ton of creeks and smaller streams that respond. They will respond much faster than the larger rivers. So we could be dealing with some significant issues with the surrounding creeks and streams especially around Metro Atlanta later tonight, as the heavier rain starts to move in and dump across the area. So keep that in mind, please, as we head through the night tonight into tomorrow morning. All right, and last but not least, it's kind of a low-end threat, but we can't rule out the potential to see a few tornadoes, especially south and east of the center of where the remnants of Sally sort of track across the area. So this is the latest graphic from the Storm Prediction Center. Basically, anything in the darker green to yellow stands the greatest risk of seeing possible tornadoes as we head through the night tonight and into the morning hours tomorrow. The graphic on the left is basically through early tomorrow morning, and then the graphic on the right is basically tomorrow. So you can see the shift in the potential threat as the system moves southwest to northeast across the area. So we're going to have to watch that. Most of the time with these tropical systems, these tornadoes are not they're pretty short-lived and relatively weak, especially at night into the early morning hours. But we can't let our guard down that there could be a couple of tornado warnings that might get issued through the night tonight into the day tomorrow across the area. All right, so really just to wrap things up, guys, the remnants of Sally, again, as Sally continues to move northeast through the day today, it will weaken, but it's still going to present some significant rainfall across the area by tonight into tomorrow, again, increasing the risk of flooding and flash flooding, which is going to be a primary concern across north and central Georgia through the night tonight into the day tomorrow. We're also going to be looking at the potential for gusty winds and a prolonged period of these winds gusting over 20 to 30 miles per hour at times. Again, the concern especially with saturated grounds through the night tonight into the day tomorrow is that these winds could certainly bring down some trees and power lines and cause some issues with power outages through the night tonight into the day tomorrow. And again, just mentioned that low end risk of a few tornadoes, especially across our far southern counties that could develop through the night tonight again into the early morning hours as the outer rain bands start to develop and increase across the area as the system approaches from the west. So we feel at this point pretty confident in what we're putting out there right now. Again, there's certainly going to be some minor adjustments and tweaks to the forecast. I mentioned the winds of what we're expecting right now. We don't have a wind advisory officially out at the moment, but we will likely be issuing one across much of the area with our afternoon forecast package in the next couple of hours. So keep an eye out for that, but just definitely wanted to throw out what we're expecting with respect to the actual wind speeds, the gusts, and the potential impacts with that. All right, so just to summarize again, we're not really, since we're going to be moving into more of a like warning mode or operational mode with the weather sort of deteriorating over the next 6 to 12 hours, we're not planning any additional formal webinars at this point. So any updates that you see from us will come from our webpage or from the Hurricane Center. And we'll certainly be proactive in trying to push stuff out through NWS chat, and we'll likely do another like partner email later on this afternoon into this evening to keep everybody up to date as we head into the overnight hours and things start to get worse. We want to make sure everybody has the latest information that we're expecting, across the area into tonight, and of course through the day tomorrow into tomorrow night. So I'm going to go ahead and just end the recording at this point, and then I'll answer questions.